Good morning, Wabash. Speaking today at Pioneer Chapel is La Alianza President Jonathan Silva and Vice President Benjamin Sampsell with their talk titled Construyendo un Hogar, or Building a Home. Our first speaker today is Benjamin Sampsell, who is a sophomore political science major, philosophy minor, and a brother of Delta Tau Delta. He was born and raised in San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas, Mexico, and moved to the States for college. He grew up in a bilingual household in Mexico and speaks English and Spanish. His mother is from Pennsylvania and his father is from Oaxaca, Mexico. On campus, he serves as the Vice President of La Alianza, President of the International Students Association, and President of the Wabash College Democrats. He's also a firm believer that El Charro has the most authentic Mexican food in town. After college, Ben plans to join the Peace Corps to later pursue law or grad school. Our second speaker today is Jonathan Silva, who is a sophomore majoring in PPE and minoring in French. He was born in Chinandega, Nicaragua, but now lives in Calumet City, Illinois. At Wabash, he is a member of Phi Gamma Delta. He's involved in Shout, MXI, Asian Culture Club, WDPD, is a Spanish consultant, and is the president of La Alianza. After college, he's thinking about doing either nonprofit or business development. Please give a warm welcome for our speakers today.
Good morning, Wabash. First off, I would like to thank Caden and Adam from the Sphinx Club for giving La Alianza the opportunity to talk to all of you today. Jonathan and I, as well as all of our hermanos from La Alianza, are thankful to be able to address the campus in such a historic way. Next, I would like to also thank my brothers at Delt for being here today as always. I love you, boys. Thank you to all the people that have allowed me to develop as a Wabash man and have changed the ways that I have come to think of myself and my role in the world. Dr. Horton, Dr. Lamberton, my Ryan brothers, Tocayo, you have all made an impact on me that has changed the ways that I have come to view myself and the expectations I set for myself. Now, we all know that Wabash is a unique place. All of us are in Crawfordsville, Indiana, a town of about 3,000 people, attending one of the last 3 all-males colleges without a sister college in the nation. Though we all know that this place is different from the moment we hear about it, we cannot fully grasp the extent of Wabash's eccentric character until we step foot on campus. In the months leading up to our freshman year, we may hear about how we have small classrooms, but there is a difference between hearing we have small classrooms and actually experiencing a class with 6 other peers, all of whom are men, 1 professor, 3 days a week throughout a whole semester. I'm sure that most students attending big schools would not be able to comprehend what that's like. And frankly, I'd be surprised if anyone didn't know about this place, didn't ask, what? After telling them about who we are and what we do here. But here we are. Though it definitely seems foreign at first, us Wabash students slowly come to understand this place as we move through it. Slowly, one cycle at a time, this place stops being so strange as we come to understand the dynamics of a small classroom, the expectations of professors, what being involved on campus truly means, and all the other things that make our college what it is. Most of us get there eventually, but the process is slower for some students than it is from others. Some students, who more often than not are students of color, and many of whom are Latinos, do not only have to adapt to a place that challenges them culturally and academically, as it does all of us, but also to a place that's immersed in a time and a place where we don't immediately fit in, one that was originally not built with us in mind, one that was not intended for us. For some of us Wabash students, the reality is that when we arrive on campus, we don't only not fully understand the ways of the Bash, but we are also not fully sure about what being us means in this place. To speak Spanish in this place, to play our music in this place. See, at home, our families often speak versions of Spanglish by combining English y el idioma español seamlessly in the middle of nuestras oraciones. That means sentences. Which leads to the creation of a sort of new language that becomes integral to our experience growing up and clearly separates us from the majority of Americans. We live like this in our own cultural setting and grow up like this. And then we're at Wabash. And we suddenly find ourselves thinking about which words to say because here, that made up half English, half Spanish word that you have grown up listening to will not be understood. It might even be frowned upon. Before I arrived on campus last fall, I expected many of the cultural differences that we encounter as Latinos in a predominantly white environment, as I often encountered similar differences when I visited my white family in the United States growing up. Besides these cultural barriers, though, I also expected to find at Wabash a group or community in which I could communicate in my first language, Spanish, as well as to listen to our music, enjoy our food, and have social events that reminded me of home. To my surprise, my expectations about the challenges I would encounter were correct, but I was wrong about the community I had hoped to find. When I arrived on campus, there was no Latino center or group that made me feel like I was closer to home. My home, San Cristobal de las Casas in Chiapas, Mexico, was 2,300 miles away, and I could feel every inch of separation between my culture and my dormitory. Surely, I had friends that listened to my music and would hear about my stories growing up in the southernmost part of Mexico, where my life was primarily shaped, but very few people understood them. By far, though, the most surprising finding since my arrival was that there wasn't only a lack of a cultural space at Wabash for myself and others like me, but that there wasn't anyone speaking about it. While I found Mexican and Latino brothers, they were silent, almost undetected. The lack of a strong vocal presence on campus that fought for Latino interests and brought awareness to our cultures, and most importantly, our struggles, was especially puzzling because we are a people that culturally loves to do loud things. For those of you that have not visited my home country, Mexico, and that includes you if your experience in Mexico consists of an all-inclusive hotel in Cancun or Cabo, or a cruise through Cozumel, let me tell you that we love volume. At home, our parties are loud, our markets are thundering, our colors are vibrant, our food is colorful. At home, we shout to the top of our lungs, "Viva Mexico," whenever we feel like it. We yell at our government about its corruption and incompetence. We throw, with a considerable amount of swear words, by the way. In fact, we are so into loud things that we throw one of the most amazing celebrations with lights, music, colors, food, for one of the greatest taboos for a lot of people, death. Now, with all of this loudness in mind, I could not comprehend the silence I found here. I couldn't comprehend why I could not find leadership among us that questioned the historic oppression that Latinos have faced in the United States. I could not comprehend why there wasn't an active opposition here to politicians that spoke about us as if we were somehow less than human, as if we were rapists, criminals, drug dealers, illegals. Why were we just taking it? Now, my first reaction to the lack of strong advocacy groups that tried to educate us on the struggles of Mexican Americans and Latinos in the United States was that maybe it was because there was simply no need for them, that the struggles weren't all that bad, and that strong prejudice only existed in the rhetoric of some politicians. But this is not true. Throughout American history, a history that is deeply intertwined with the history of Latin America, Latinos in the United States have faced deep discrimination. Our people are often called illegal and told to go back to our countries, all while half of the current US territory was previously owned by Mexican farmers, who, when they became US citizens, they gradually lost many of the rights that had been promised to them as new citizens of a foreign country. Many of them were eventually lynched. Today, Mexican Americans and Latinos still face deep prejudice and are often disregarded as Americans entirely if our mastery of the English language is not up to par to the collective standards. Latinos also still face severe underrepresentation in politics, making up only about 1% of elected officials, despite us being 18% of the American population. Alongside with a low political representation, Latinos are also underrepresented in popular culture, as we only make about 5% of main cast members in TV and film. These numbers are concerning, and they're real. Our history is real. So why aren't we talking about it? Why are we as Latino people so quiet? How are we indifferent in face of this? I perceive that some of this silence is due to our cultural upbringings. See, in traditional Mexican upbringings, there's a special emphasis placed on silence. Macho culture is deeply intertwined with our perceptions of self. Mexican men are meant not to complain or talk about one's emotions. We are asked to work hard and only work hard because that's the only way to survive. Women in traditional upbringings are also victims to the silencing, as they are told since they're young that calladita te ves más bonita, or you look prettier when you're quiet. Growing up, I heard this very phrase thrown around since before I was in first grade. This constant silencing and training to not open up about one situation over a long period of time ultimately sticks with us in a way that makes us feel indifferent to the world around us. We exist and we feel, but because we cannot externalize any of these emotions, we can never engage with the world around us. We become indifferent. Mexican Nobel Prize winner Octavio Paz is one of the most relevant and important figures in Latin history. And he talks about this indifference in his essay, Mexican Masks, where he says, the Mexican, whether young or old, criollo or mestizo, general or laborer or lawyer, seems to me to be a person who shuts himself away to protect himself. His face is a mask, so is his smile. Or rather, viejo o adolescente, criollo o mestizo, general, obrero o licenciado, el mexicano se me parece como un ser que se encierra y se preserva. Máscara el rostro, máscara la sonrisa. Octavio Paz explains the silence as a defense mechanism, as a way to safeguard our manliness, as a way to look prettier, as a way to not be subject to humiliation for the accent of our tongue or the color of our skin. And this silence makes sense. We come from a history of having to hide in order to survive or being silent. We hid from the Spanish during and after their stealing of our land and destruction of our civilizations. During this era, our languages were silenced and transformed, and we had to learn the foreign white tongue or face the consequences of torture or murder. After the Spanish, our territories were taken once again. And our language, for so many of us, was transformed once more. Now we had to speak English or live as second-class citizens. Today, this trend continues. Those of us who have left their families behind and searched for a merely decent life had to learn to be silent or be deported. Deported by being sent back to our countries, sure, but countries whose conditions were not self-imposed. They were made by the brutal pillaging of the Spanish, the French, and the Americans. See, our culture loves to be loud in celebration while it safeguards the silence of our experiences. But this silence was not self-imposed. This is not due to us being a sort of backward people, but rather due to a history of discrimination and oppression. Before the Spanish were the Aztecs, which was an empire that was so grand it had to be destroyed in order to be contained. It was not an underdeveloped civilization. It had its own complex history, thriving markets, cities of hundreds of thousands of people, roads, language, systems of government, law, thought, philosophy, texts. We were the guides of our destiny, and for this we did not have silence. But not all is lost. We can still find our voice if we learn about our past, as this can be our future. Brothers, I am not here laying out the oppression and history of our people to say that I am concerned about these things, although I am. I am here to say that I am concerned because I do not hear enough complaints about it. Because there was no cultural club on campus that tried to bring awareness to them when I arrived. Although we may be scared, we can find the strength in our history. We can be empowered by reconnecting with our roots and using our lessons to build a home. To my Latino brothers, I ask from us that we use our voice and break the passive silence that has kept us at bay by speaking about our own experiences and supporting our brothers when they do. I also ask that we seek education about our history and our present so as to better understand what we were and what we can be. To the rest of my brothers, you also bear a responsibility in breaking the silence. I ask from you that you listen to the silence and not ignore it, as the silence itself is loud. Please, don't wait around for us to tell you about our struggles. Seek to them yourself. You have a great power to break the silence by asking your brothers about their experiences and listening when they answer. Brothers, let's build a home. Thank you.
Can you guys hear me? Awesome. Buenos dias, Wabash. First, happy Women's History Month. I gotta be honest with all of you. I'm really nervous right now, but also really grateful for the opportunity. I also have some disclaimers to make. This chapel talk is gonna be in Spanglish. If you don't know what Spanglish is, well, you weren't listening to Benjamin. Also, I will use terminology as Hispanic or Latino because I prefer it rather than Latinx or Latine, because I feel like Latino is something that I, as a Latin American, would say, and Latinx is something more created in the US. Third, I wanted to remind you that I am a student. I'm not an expert in DEI, I'm not an expert in Hispanic struggles, I'm not an expert in minority struggles. These are my personal experiences, what I'm about to share with you, and I just hope these talks can help and resonate with you guys. So, let's start with context. Let's start since the beginning. I came to the United States in 2012 with my siblings. None of us could speak English, including my mom. We were at an odd spot, especially when it came to education, since I can remember nights of taking up to 3 hours of homework, since I had to translate everything from English to Spanish, and then from Spanish to English. Also, it's really hard to have a social life when you cannot communicate with your peers. Who would have thought? I also experienced bullying from my peers, which were kids. A lot of them would judge me because I was not white, or black, or Mexican. People never invited me to their groups because I was different, and they saw that as a negative rather than a positive. And that hurt it, but helped me to be stronger. In my experiences, I saw the push for the diminishing of my culture in many ways. Being Latino was simply not beautiful, and rather Latinos themselves tried to assimilate into the American culture, rather than taking pride into their heritage. I grew up in a predominantly black and Hispanic area, but never actually felt like I belonged. People would tell me to not play Spanish music, to not speak my language, because we are in America. Side note, it was really weird for me to understand the terminology of America, just because geographically speaking, it includes North, South, and Central America, but when somebody in here says it, it only includes the United States. It's kind of odd. Besides all of this, I was lucky that my mom surrounded herself with other Latinos and Latinas that were hardworking and took pride into their culture. Las carnes asadas, las fiestas de cumpleaños, el español that we spoke every day in the house were good ways for me to cope and feel like I belong. My mom always had one rule: you speak Spanish en la casa. All of these experiences in the United States led my mom to empower me, to be proud of being Latino, and to always celebrate my culture wherever I go. She taught me whenever possible to try and empower the Hispanic boys. She helped me understand to be gracious of the opportunities I had, but also to never forget where I came from. Now, coming to Wabash was a big cultural shock, just like coming to the United States. I struggled a lot here because my culture was not being celebrated or represented. In my fraternity, there was only one individual who I can speak Spanish to, and it was so odd to not be able to speak my lengua, something that I have for 18 years. I can say the lack of Spanish really took a toll in my mental health. Also coming to a PWI, where you encounter brothers who have probably never seen much diversity in their life, can be tough. You will see active prejudice, implicit bias, and lack of understanding from them, because no one prepares them to be equitable or sympathetic. It is hard to feel like you belong where you live in a place where people assume that if you're brown, you can either be illegal or from abroad. In my case, I'm from abroad, so they got that right. Engaging in conversations about immigration and hearing people share the common theme that legality is more important than humanity can make it tough to feel like you belong or you can be accepted. And the lack of a Hispanic club in campus made it really hard on me my fall semester of freshman year. So, as a spring freshman, I sat down with Benjamin Sampsell as a PCA in career service and talked about how great it would be to have a group of Latinos where we can share our culture, and like the magic of Wabash students, we graphed an idea and we made it to reality. I personally had two goals: change the name of Unidos por Sangres to something else because, Unidos por Sangres acronym is UPS, and we didn't want to be too associated with that. Also, we saw how the White brothers kind of used that acronym as a way to make fun and undermine the club. My other goal was to answer this question: why was this club needed? As a freshman, not having Unidos por Sangre left an hoyo in my heart that honestly could not be filled. As a freshman, I realized that I needed La Alianza because when I didn't have La Alianza, I had no place where to listen to my music and be sharing my culture. Let me give you an example. There was one time where we had a semi-formal at Fiji, and I asked a brother if I can play a Spanish song, a Christmas one. This was the theme of the party. I remember that I asked him when no one was in the room on purpose, so he would be more inclined to saying yes. As you can see, this is problematic. He hesitated and said no because people won't feel comfortable, and we should wait for later at night when people have more drinks. I remember I rebutted and say, but hey, no one's here. We're not going to make anyone uncomfortable. He then said, you're right, go ahead. I was able to play my music. However, this came with a sentiment of shame, like Spanish is not normal, and I didn't like that feeling. Like Spanish was something beneath that required people to be intoxicated so it can be appreciated. In this instance, Spanish was not being celebrated. It was being avoided. I was being avoided. I remember another situation where a pledge brother told me at a party, hey bro, take off this crap, no one likes it. And I was like, if you understand that this music is beautiful, if you play it to the people from my culture, they will love it. They will be having the time of their life. Of course, I thought about this, and I didn't say it. Rather, I said, okay, and left mad with a feeling of shame. I know their intentions were not harmful, that they were looking for the greater good of the party, but that came with the price of me feeling ashamed of my culture, because in this social setting, it wasn't normal. It wasn't an expectation. Now, when I was practicing this chapel talk, one of my brothers, Richard Pan, told me, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but try to understand that hearing Spanish music can be weird for some people and can sometimes ruin the vibe of a party because they cannot understand it. It is not their expectation when they go to a party. And I told him, that is exactly the problem. It's not that my brothers are being prejudiced or anything like that, but that my music is not an expectation. It's not normal. That is truly what I'm trying to convey here. The Spanish music is not normal to the bigger culture in here. And since Spanish is a part of me, my culture, then when I take the lacking of representation, I became less likely to belong, to feel like a home. I do gotta say, as time passed, I have seen more changes, more embracing of my culture. I see Brother Nathaniel or Gavin Hill listening to banda when we are a small gathering, and it's awesome. I also see our house DJ, Sam Foster, also trying to incorporate Spanish music into semi-big party, and it's awesome. It helps me feel like I belong. But the truth is that I have not seen this change collectively, and that's why La Alianza is needed. At La Alianza, this avoidance of Spanish does not happen. All of us are hermanos. I remember just hanging out with the guys, having meetings in Spanish, playing Bad Bunny, trueno, salsa, bachata, reggaeton, banda, and there was no feeling of shaming in my culture. Rather, there was an embracing of my heritage, of my language. Something that sadly does not happen in a lot of fraternity. It is a dilemma that a lot of minorities go through. Let me explain. I was thankful to have an interaction with a Latino alumni from 2008, Dr. Julio Alberto Enriquez. When we met, we saw that we had a lot of similarities in a personal level, and we had a lot of experiences as immigrants and Wabash men. He told me how he was a Lambda Chi, how he loved being at Wabash, and how he loved being a Lambda Chi. Shout out to Lambdas. He also mentioned a lot of injustices that he lived because of his skin color. In one of our talks, we coincidimos that in fraternities, one problem that Latinos and minorities have is that we have to assimilate to survive and be accepted. If you don't know, assimilate, in my opinion, is that process of changing and modifying your culture to the point of hiding it so you can be like the culture of the majority in a society. It's like you don't want to be looked at as this exotic, weird individual, so you decide to hide rather than to take pride into your culture, just like that example before of music. We also noticed that, like before in a fraternity, for a minority to be truly understood, a white brother needed to validate and share their opinion. If not, the concern of the minority just becomes someone complaining. And this is tough. I live and experience this in my fraternity, and it messes you with your mental health. It makes you doubt yourself. It makes you feel that you're the problem. It invalidates your emotion, and it oppresses you because you don't have a voice. The white man does. And it's tough because I want to believe that we should move away from race. The white, natives, Asian, blacks, indigenous, Latinos at Wabash College should be united, should be empathetic to each other's concern, and be brothers rather than the division that can occur. And it takes a mutual understanding of the emotions and beliefs of the individuals involved, which can be accomplished by proactivity from each other. For example, to be able to understand you, I need to make my research, learn about you, about your culture, and embrace that. Where you need to do the same, which will lead us to place both cultures as equally important because one culture is important to me and the other culture is important to my brother. I wanted to quote Professor Pavlinich, a gentleman ought to be mindful of their privilege, and I may add, but also go out of their way to understand the culture that is important to his brother. Bueno, el caso es that Alianza is able to provide that comfort and embracement of the Latino culture that Wabash College lacks, but it also creates a sense of safe embrace spaces. There's this last anecdote that I would like to say, which is about the time 5 Latinos were rushing at Fiji. I remember when we were in a room just talking to these guys, and our previous rusher was asking these prospects questions, and they were happily answering. Before he was done, I remember I asked, "Can I ask a question?" And he said, "Sure." I remember I asked him, "Hey guys, so you guys are from Texas. There's a big cultural shocking coming from there. So how does it feel to be here at Wabash College?" I waited a couple of seconds, saw the same hesitant I had a couple of years ago, and I tried to make them feel safe and empower them by saying, "Hey, it's okay, you can be honest." It was like telling them, "Hey, it's okay, you can say how you feel." One of the prospects looks at me and he starts looking at his skin, and he says, "Hey, it's a big cultural shock. There's a lot of white people in here, and I see myself as the only brown. It's a little scary." Now, I want to break down this quote. He's not saying that white people make him uncomfortable, but rather the lackness of his race being represented does. He's not saying he's scared because white people will do something to him, but rather because he's away from his home, and this is a big step out of his comfort zone. What this student said was such a powerful message that the room stayed silent, and I remember saying to myself, wow, this is so similar to how I felt, and I understand this prospect, and I understand that fear. And I also understand that he needs a place where he can embrace his culture and feel comfortable. And Fiji or other fraternities will teach him a lot of useful and amazing things, but it will not allow him to do this embracing and take pride into its culture. Now, I say this not to create a division between fraternities and minorities or anything like that, rather to show a different perspective. El caso es que then I said to myself, I am glad that we can create this place with Alianza, where students can embrace and be proud of their Hispanic heritage. And I can say this because of what I have seen with my hermanos in the club. How comfortable and happy we feel when we have carnes asadas, FIFA tournaments, when we are at the meeting speaking our language, when we are at the soccer games cheering for our brothers in Spanish, when we are able to play music free of judgment, cuando solo estamos entre nosotros, and it just creates a vibe. I say this is the safe space because we are comfortable. But it's also a brave space because, all of us are unique individuals with unique cultures that are constantly learning from each other. It's not the same to be a Latino born in Mexico or Nicaragua or los Estados Unidos. We all have different aspects of our culture to show and learn from. Another aspect of a brave space is that you cannot truly have a safe space at Wabash College because you'll be constantly surrounded with things that will make you uncomfortable. And that's okay because it is good to get out of your comfort zone. But I do want to acknowledge that sometimes it's too much, such as the weird looks that townies give you, or the Confederate flags. I mean, no sé, güey. So knowing that we can create a semi-safe, brave space for Latinos really made me happy and proud of all of our hermanos and what they're creating. We're doing things that are greater than us. Don't get me wrong, us Latinos at Wabash College are missing so many more things to discover, embrace, and take pride into our culture that Wabash College could offer. This being more representation of our culture in faculty and staff, more classes that teach the Hispanic culture in art, religion, philosophy, writing, science, etc., etc. I also wanted to say that me or other Alianza hermanos are not experts on diversity or how to appropriately guide students to learn more about their culture. We're just hermanos embracing our culture in our own ways. Today, I wanted to show Wabash College how hard for minorities to come to Wabash College. We need more tools, more appropriate resources like WLIP. Wabash, you need to start helping more the minority student and not just throwing them here and expect them to figure it out without sufficient tools. Institutionally, we need to equip fraternities leaders with proper DEI training, which can create inequities if it's being lacked in the process of bidding and living in a fraternity. Because of the homogeneous environments that people are in fraternities, they can develop a lot of implicit bias, and I have seen this in multiple rosters that will help to spread inequity. And like me, fraternities are not experts in DEI, but you as a college and institution can facilitate that help. Stop relying on people of color to fix this problem. We can help, but we should not be able to be the primary source of aid, because guess what? We should focus primarily on being students. Also, leaders of campus, start engaging in DEI work. Start expanding your horizon and start learning different perspectives and experiences. A lot of people look up to you and follow what you do. And if you only come from a homogeneous environment, then it is problematic and inefficient. I believe that the leaders of this campus should engage in DEI training because it's not only good to create community, but also good for your professional life. You should attend to events hosted by SHAO, MXI, Asian Cultural Club, ISA, La Alianza, that are aimed to educate and show a different perspective. Why? Because we are your brothers, and you should care to know our culture, just like we care about learning about Wabash traditions. But I will stop. La Alianza knows and understands that it's imperfect as well. There's a lot of room to grow, such as acknowledging the anti-blackness trend that there is in Latin American countries, or the prevalent machismo in our culture. And we will try to expand and have this conversation. But remember, we're not even a year old. However, we're happy to say that we can facilitate the embracement of the Latino culture here at Wabash College. We're happy that the college has accepted us, that the students have accepted us, and that with La Alianza, we're able to create a space where Wabash brothers can interact, learn, and be part of the Latino culture. I want to end by saying thanks to my Fiji 24 class for teaching me how to be a team leader, to professors like Warner, Rogers, Monsalve, Lamberton, Trott, Horton, who have helped me to take ownership of my life and my culture. I remember once Professor Monsalve gave me an advice and told me, pregunta por más. In our culture, we tend to be scared and not use the maximum resources that we have. We are scared. And that left me speechless because it was true. It showed me my insecurities and fear, and it helped me break them. Thanks to her words, I was motivated and empowered. Also, thanks to Adam Berg, one of the most influential hermanos in my life, he encouraged me and motivated me to be the best version of myself. He helped me, listened to me, guided me on being a good leader that enabled me to create La Alianza. He also speaks Spanish, which was tremendously helpful with my homesicknesses. Also, thanks to Reese Forkini, who one day with tears in her eyes told me, Jonathan, you're the type of person that will not give up. Someone who sees and is able to enact change in this house and in campus. Please take advantage of this skill that God has given you. He gave me the strength and courage that I needed. Gracias al Sphinx Club por esta oportunidad. En serio, muchas gracias. I would like to also encourage my brothers of color to stop. Do not assimilate. Start taking ownership of your culture, of your heritage, on what you deem as normal, but you hide because you want others to accept you. Start being you in the beautiful culture that you have. I understand your pain. I understand that we're at Wabash College, but you need to start being yourself. Hermanos de la Alianza, First Cabinet, thank you for being amazing leaders and create a team working environment and being brave enough to start this journey together. Gracias a Kobe Ali Reyes, Julian Albizo, Jonathan Gonzalez, Benjamin Sampsell, and Jacob Ramirez. Now, freshmen, Jorge Uribe, Fabian Garcia, Oscar Jacome, Victor Polanco, Cesta Cero, Jacob Ramirez, Jared Araiza, and Neil Lehman. You guys are the future of this club. You guys are strong, creative leaders, and I know when the time comes for you guys to step up, you guys will. My full trust is with you, hermanos. I know you guys will do great things. Gracias, Prospect Hermanos, for getting out of your comfort zone and start to embrace the Hispanic culture with so many pure and good intentions. La Alianza as a whole, you guys are not my brothers, son mis hermanos, and I love that. Thank you for creating this amazing familia. I know we will keep working to show the United States the power of the Latino voice in the Latino culture. Gracias for helping us to construir nuestro hogar. Thank you.